Hi, my name is Beth Azor, and I own shopping centers in South Florida. And this is my podcast, I Own a Shopping Center, Now What? So today I want to talk about options. Options are not good for the landlords. Not good. They're only good for the tenants. So it's very frustrating when I am looking at a shopping center to buy that I'm very excited about, and then I look at the OM or the offering memorandum, or they send me a rent roll, and I see that the current owner of the property has given every tenant 2 5-year options or 3 5-year options. And it's even more infuriating or frustrating when the owner of the property has fixed the rents. This is not good for a person who's buying shopping centers, because we want to go in and increase the value, right? For right now, since COVID in South Florida, rental rates are significantly higher than they were before in pre-COVID times. I've got situations where tenants are paying $34, and when their lease expires in the next 18 months, the market value of that space today is closer to $70. Now, if that tenant had 3 5-year options or 2 5-year options fixed at 3% annually, then that holds the value or locks in a lower value than what is available in the marketplace. Now, certainly we live in real estate cycles, right? And I'm not saying that in all markets you have skyrocketing rental rates during option times. I understand that. But for us, I've been doing this for 39 years. Right now is a crazy time with inflation. I reached out to my clients right when CPI, I think, jumped to, 5. That was shocking. And then it kept going up. And I was calling my clients saying, please stop the 3% annual increases, because that's not even the cost of living at this point. We should be getting 4, 5, or 6. Or if you want, you can do a CPI with a minimum, and maybe most people would want a cap. That's okay too. But these 3% annual increases in a time that we've been living in the last couple of years, this recording is being recorded in June of 2024, we should no longer be doing 3% annual increases. But anyway, so back to options. Options are only good for the tenant. It's not good for the landlord. The tenant's in control. We have no decision in this process. And many, many times the tenant will wait to let us know if they're going to renew. A lot of times on social media, there's questions about, my tenant is supposed to renew, they're not renewing. I thought we had a deal, but they haven't signed the renewal. What can we do to get the guy to sign up? Now, obviously, in this situation, the landlord wants the tenant to renew, and the tenant's lollygagging and not finalizing documentation. So a couple things that I've done in the past is all my leases, or most of my leases, I inherit leases. From when I buy shopping centers, I inherit leases that do not have this clause. And when I can, I add this clause that says, in the prior 90 days of lease expiration, the landlord can put a leasing sign in the window and can start showing the space. So if you think the tenant is going to renew, but he's hemming and hawing, he's not sure, he's delaying decisions, if you have this in your lease, and even if you don't have it in the lease, if it's silent, you can say, look, I have a multi-million-dollar asset here. If you don't want to sign up, and if you don't want to renew, or you're not sure yet, I'm going to start showing the space, and I'm going to put a leasing sign in the window. That, a lot of times, usually gets them off of their indecisive chair, and usually they sign up if they are just playing games and know that they want to renew already. So that's something. With dealing with nationals, I recently had a situation where I have a national wanting to renew, but they have no options, but their sales have dropped and they want to renew in 1 year increments. And this is a time where we don't need to do that again. We're in South Florida and the market is very frothy. So I have begun marketing their space. And a very interesting thing that happened, one of the prospects that I've been speaking to about their space actually called my tenant and said, "So I hear you're moving out." So what do you think happened? The tenant called me and said, "Why was this prospect calling me saying that they heard I was moving out?" And I said, "I've been prospecting the space. You know that I went to a shopping center conference and had meetings about your space. Your lease is up in the fall. We haven't come to an agreement on if you're going to renew, what your rent's going to be, how long the term's going to be. You're telling me your sales have dropped and that you can't afford to pay market rent. So I have a multi-million-dollar asset here. I am marketing the space for other options. I need to discover and research and find out what other options are out there for me to make a decision on allowing you to stay at a lower than market rent." That was great. Who knew that I had a prospect helping me get my renewal done? Because of course, that tenant has now pretty much come up to market and decided they wanted to stay because they realized I was serious when I said I was marketing their space for lease. I don't know why they didn't think I was serious. That happens a lot. I had another situation off topic, not on renewals, where I was replacing a grocery store, a supermarket space, and I was working with a national supermarket and then a local supermarket. And I kept telling the national supermarket that I had a local person, a local grocery store that my clients were very interested in leasing to, and we're probably leaning towards doing that deal. And the real estate manager of the regional or national grocery store chain, I guess didn't believe me, right? I guess they've probably had brokers or leasing agents in the past say, "Oh, we have someone else," right? "We have another prospect that we're going to go with." So when we ended up signing the lease with the local grocer, that other group was very upset and called me about it. And I just very frankly said, I told you all along I had someone else, but they didn't believe me. But back to options. So options are not good. If I give options, now obviously it's a big difference between mom and pops, independents, entrepreneurs, and national tenants like Chipotle and Starbucks, right? With national tenants, it's really impossible in my mind, in my world, to not give options that are fixed. But in the past, we've been having to do fixed options for these nationals in the 10 to 12% range. And I have seen that changing and increasing, at least here in South Florida, since the pandemic, which is great because even at 15%, and oh, by the way, the nationals do their increases every 5 years. So when they do 15% every 5 years, that's still back to that dreaded 3% annually, more or less. I personally would love to have more leverage with them and get away from that. But with the options, with locals and independents, if I'm going to give options, which I would love to not, but it's such a market-driven concept for us as landlords, since all the other landlords give options, it's hard to not give options. But I do know of some landlords that don't, that hold firm and don't give options. What I try to do with independents and entrepreneurs is always do option at market. Just say, I don't know what 5 years from now is maybe the market will be lower. Maybe you'll benefit. But I will always try to do an option at market. And oh, by the way, when I say independents, entrepreneurs, or mom and pops, these franchisees who may have a very big franchisee name, let's say Jimmy John's, but the franchisee that you're signing a lease with, it's their first foray into retail operations or retail leasing, right? It's their first Jimmy John's store. They don't have 200 stores. So even though Jimmy John's is a national name, the person you're signing a lease with that's guaranteeing the lease is a mom and pop. So again, in those situations, I fight like bloody hell to treat them as a mom and pop or an independent entrepreneur with terms like options at market. Also, I think my last point on options will be if someone signs a 5-year lease and they want a 3 5-year option or a 2 5-year option. And what we do is we will only match the commitment they make. So if they sign a 3-year lease, I'll give them a 3-year option. If they sign a 5-year lease, I'll give them a 5-year option. If they sign a 10-year lease, I'll give them two 5-year options. But I try to never give them more options than the original term that they agree to commit to me. I hope this was helpful. If you like this information, follow, subscribe, share with your friends, and feel free to send me any topics you'd like me to cover in this new podcast, I Own Shopping Centers, Now What?